local president of the Lambton Canada Lincoln Teachers Federation. In a couple of days, I have to go back and face my nearly 1,400 members and explain how an olive branch has been reached to all members as of yesterday's press conference from the Minister of Education. What message would you two like me to take back in the implementation of Bill 115 and imposed contracts, and then the repealing of the act that is set to take place later this month? What message would you like me to take back to my members?
We'll let Sandra answer that one first, and then go to Gerard.
Thanks, I'm delighted you're here too. There are a number of folks who've been volunteering for me for many years, by the way, who are part of the education system. I'm delighted to have an educator in my family who's also here today, Ken Eyre, who is notably the most well-known music man of the Sarnia system, and your teacher.
My former teacher, yes.
Former teacher. So Ken Eyre is actually part of my family, and my niece and nephews now are fantastic musicians because of their grandfather. Anyway, so I'm delighted that Ken and Donna are here today supporting me. I don't know if you knew I had some family in Sarnia, and then my brother married a Sarnia girl, which was even better, right? So, anyways, only to say, Adelina, you probably know Adelina, your colleague from Windsor, heading up the ETF. She was with me the other day, too, so we have a chance to talk. We know that our election as leader is going to be at the end of January, and if I am the Premier at the end of January, the lay of the land, we don't know what it is. We've got a clearer picture today based on yesterday's press conference, because we didn't know even until the last moment that QP was going to settle. We might have had a chance. Who knew? Now that we're getting a sense of what it's going to be like, we're going to have to extend the olive branch first. We're going to have to reach out to Sam and say, please come and talk to us. I had an open door policy as the education minister. You can bet they're going to get that as the Premier as well. We will work it out. Collective bargaining is part of the Liberal government's history. It's part of who we are. And these last few weeks over Bill 115, frankly, is an aberration. We go back to who we really are. It's about collective bargaining.
Yeah, I think it's probably a difficult conversation you're going to have with your members. I've visited all the picket lines that have been at our debates, and we've had the anomaly of having teachers outside our debates and not inside. And I think it's, it was a hard-fought thing. It took me a year visiting. I was 3 years education critic. We signed up, I think, about 8,000 or 9,000 people in gatherings like this, just with pieces of paper and so on. And when I was minister, we grew that to about 16,000 people. And teachers, as well as parents and students and so on, felt that they were part of our decision-making process. And then what I think has happened recently is not about what's in the contract, although there's some things there I think that bear explanation in terms of whether they work or don't. It's the way it was done. And I have to say that there were things done and said in the Kitchener-Waterloo election around teachers and elementary teachers in particular that I did not think the Liberal Party would do. So, I think if we're going to convince this province that we have a capacity to renew, to be better, as Premier McGuinty invited, a new agenda, we're going to have to look at things with fresh eyes. And what I would say to your members is to please not overreact on this. There is going to be a new Premier in 3 weeks approximately from now, and from my standpoint, there will be a fresh approach. We need goodwill in our schools. We need enthusiastic teachers, as we've had them for most of the last 9 years, creating the best outcomes in the English-speaking world. But I know from the work that we did that that's going to have to come from initiatives that we're going to take. And I'm committed to a fair agreement, fairly bargained. And so as the dust settles on this, I'm hoping there won't be an inordinate amount of pushback. And what I would say to your members, it's not about the Liberal Party per se. It's about the goodwill of the public. We have to sustain that goodwill. Everything that we get to do as a government and everything that teachers get to do in terms of being funded happens as long as the public is on board. And what I hope doesn't happen is a lot of recrimination and back and forthing, because emotions are running high on this issue. And they are, frankly, also on the government side. And I think, just because somebody is in charge doesn't mean that they're not human beings. And I think, I proposed a peace plan which was that everybody take a step back. And I would have preferred that as the outcome. But I still think that at the end of this leadership contest, the Premier has to take responsibility for reestablishing a relationship. We're all receiving the emails from people saying, we were Liberals, but we won't be. But I think, fundamentally, when it comes down to it, 8.5 out of the last 9 years have been the most successful partnership between education workers and a government that there's been for a generation. And that's not important for us just electorally. It's important because the students had that extra benefit, you know, in terms of being able to achieve. And I think that's hopefully some of the way that things are going to get looked at over the next little while. And I've already reached out to some of the folks there because I think it's important. I think it's really important we keep the lines of communication open and that we, at the end of the day, we're seen as the government that can still make things work.